Welcome once again to Washington Unplugged. I'm Bob Schieffer, and this is our regular Friday afternoon looking at news behind the news here in the nation's capital. We were a one-story town again this week in Washington. The economy dominated the news. We'll talk about that with our roundtable and with a woman who styles herself as a rebel economist. But there was one story that didn't get nearly the notice it should have. It was just pushed out of the headlines because of the economic news, and that was the fact that the president announced that he will send 17,000 more American troops to Afghanistan. Some of these were troops that were headed for Iraq. Now they'll be going to Afghanistan. We're going to talk about it first on our broadcast, webcast as we call it. I'm just getting used to that, with a Pentagon official who's been there back to the days when Dick Cheney was the Secretary of Defense. He served under various administrations. He's now a civilian official at the Pentagon. He was once a Special Forces officer, but he's with us today to talk about this decision to send these troops to Afghanistan. Bryan Whitman is his name. And Bryan, let me just ask you first, already we're hearing that the situation is so bad in Afghanistan that this is not going to be enough, that more troops are going to be needed there. Give us a little background on what's happening, why the decision was made to send this number of troops.
Sure. Well, we have known for some time that the conditions in Afghanistan were not trending in the right direction, and the commander in Afghanistan assessed that he needed additional military capability. And working with NATO partners, but also here in the United States, it was determined that we should start applying some additional military capability there, even while the new administration is conducting an extensive review of our Afghanistan strategy. So that's what you saw this week. You saw the president approve some additional capability going into Afghanistan, a Marine Expeditionary Brigade, an Army Striker Battalion, for about 17,000 forces along with their enablers.
One of the things that interested me when I heard the president announce this, he said he wants to limit U.S. objectives in Afghanistan. What does that mean?
Well, I think what we've all been talking about is that we need both short, mid, and long-term objectives with respect to Afghanistan. And it's good to have long-range objectives, but we should also have some short-term, concrete, achievable objectives that we are pursuing along all the lines of operation, not just security, but economic and governance. All go hand in hand with providing a safe and stable environment. So I think that we're not going to lose sight of long-range goals and objectives, but I think part of this strategy review will help identify some of those shorter and midterm concrete objectives that we want to achieve.
How did the situation in Afghanistan get so bad? There was a time when Afghanistan looked really good. Suddenly, it looks really bad, and I think everybody agrees on that.
Yeah, I think that, in any of these conflicts, the enemy always gets a vote. And we saw a resurgence in Taliban operations, and because of that, they started to achieve some success with some of the populations out there. And we had under-resourced the effort. What we are looking for as we add these additional forces in there is to have some sustained, persistent presence where we're at. Afghanistan is a vastly huge country with very rugged terrain, a very long border, and it's one thing to be able to go out and conduct an operation somewhere, but if you don't have sufficient forces to stay there, to sustain the successes that you achieve, it's easy for those successes to be lost in the long run.
All right. Well, Bryan Whitman, I want to thank you for coming by today. I want to turn now to our CBS News Pentagon correspondent, National Security Correspondent David Martin. How tough is this going to be, David, and what do people at the Pentagon, do they think that this has a chance to work? And when we say has a chance to work, what does that mean when we say it's going to work?
Well, it certainly has a chance of killing a lot of Taliban. When they put 17,000 more troops, most of them into the south, that is going to flood that zone, which is the Taliban sanctuary. So there are going to be battles, and the U.S. has overwhelming firepower. A lot of Taliban are going to get killed, but that does not necessarily translate to success unless the Afghan government comes in behind those troops and with American and international help starts delivering services to the population. And that means schools, electricity, and police protection. And right now, the government of Afghanistan is ranked as one of the weakest, most corrupt governments in the world. So it's going to take a lot more than 17,000 more troops to turn that around.
And what is success there, David? What exactly is our objective now?
Well, it's certainly no longer, the bar is no longer as high as it once was, which was a prosperous democracy in Afghanistan. I think what they're looking for now is something that is simply not a failed state, not a haven for terrorist organizations to plot attacks against the United States.
I'm Bob Schieffer, and you're watching Washington Unplugged on CBSNews.com/Washington Unplugged. And this is Washington Unplugged, joined now by CBS News Capitol Hill correspondent Nancy Cortez and the Washington Post national political reporter Perry Bacon. And you are, of course, watching Washington Unplugged at CBSNews.com/Washington Unplugged. Well, let's talk a little bit about what happened this week. I mean, the president rolled out the big housing plan, Nancy. It seems to me that there's a lot of talk now. When is this money going to get out into the system? Not just the housing plan, but also the whole stimulus package.
That's right. And actually, we were at the Department of Transportation yesterday talking about how the transportation money is going to get out the door. And the new Transportation Secretary, Ray LaHood, was saying he's committed to getting all of their money out the door within 120 days. He says he's got a go team that's been working on this since before the stimulus was even passed. They're working 24/7, talking with the heads of the departments of transportation in all 50 states about how they get the money out the door, what projects they fund. He thinks he can do it quickly.
Wow, that's amazing. Do you think he can do that, Perry? That sounds like a pretty ambitious plan.
I think it's very ambitious. One of the big challenges they have is a lot of the secretaries of these cabinet agencies have been hired, like Ray LaHood or like Arne Duncan in education, but the deputies under them have often not been picked yet, and the people and the sub people you need to sort of really implement policy are not there yet. So I think it'll take a lot longer. The education department is spending a lot more money in this. Like it has $100 billion in the stimulus bill, and that's a lot of money for a department that doesn't spend that much traditionally. So some of the departments are going to have a lot of trouble spending this money so quickly, I think.
Well, I think you bring up a very interesting point because, for example, over at Treasury, I mean, you have Treasury Secretary Geithner and a whole bunch of assistants dressed up like empty offices. There's just nobody over there at the building right now.
That was one of the problems when they laid out the sort of TARP 2 funds in part. The plan to sort of bring that, have a good PR strategy behind that was sort of hampered by the fact that they have very few staff and communications and the implementation staff is just not there right now the way they'd like it to. It'll happen in a few months. So this is the traditional for administrations to have some amount of trouble sort of staffing up initially, but Obama's trying to do so much early on, I mean, as far as housing, as far as the stimulus, that it's going to be a real challenge in implementing these programs.
The governor's conference is going to be here this weekend, and of course, Barack Obama gets a grand total of 3 Republican votes for the stimulus package, all 3 of them in the Senate. And yet you have Republican governors coming to town that are saying, well, you know, we're sort of philosophically opposed to this, but there is going to be some money out there on the table, and I guess we better take it.
It's kind of the opposite of not in my backyard, right? It's only okay if it's in my backyard. So that's right. You've got some Republican governors who are saying we're being pragmatic about this, and as long as the money is there, we're going to take it. But then you've got other Republican governors who are saying, well, not so fast. We're not sure if we want it or not. And I'm just wondering what you think about how that's going to play in their states.
Well, exactly. I mean, it's going to take a tough guy, to stand there and say, hey, folks, there's a bunch of money out there that we could use to keep from firing policemen and firemen and you know, shutting down school construction, but philosophically, I'm going to be against taking that. So we'll let some other state have it. Is that going to happen?
What you're seeing is a month into the Obama administration, the 2012 Republican primary has already started, which is why Bobby Jindal of Louisiana and Mark Sanford of South Carolina, people who are considering running for president in 4 years, said, I hate the stimulus, I don't like the way it's spending. But Sanford backed down yesterday. I think on the early show, in fact, he had been saying before, I won't take the money, and then he realized, okay, fine, I'll take the money. It would take a real courageous politician to say, I'm not going to take a lot of money that's going to help my state. And so far, none of the Republican governors have really been willing to do that.
I think my prediction is they'll take the money. You're watching Washington Unplugged. I'm Bob Schieffer. This is Washington Unplugged, and I'm here with Michelle Muccio, who is a self-proclaimed rebel economist who has, an alternative to the president's economic stimulus plan. Here's a little video she put together to sort of explain it.
You own this book.
My name is Al Slaughter.
Al Slaughter?
Right. And I spell like a slaughterhouse, so you can't miss that.
You have never murdered anybody.
No.
That's me, Michelle. Part economist, part rebel rouser. I don't know if you heard of this stimulus bill that's going to spend like another $800 billion at least.
Trillion.
It's trillion.
By the time they pay interest on the $800 billion, it's going to be $1 trillion.
Why don't we ask Obama to give us some of our tax dollars back? Here's my idea. Eliminate the payroll tax for a year. It would cost the same amount of money as Congress's stimulus plan.
It's the most immediate thing that you can do.
Every person who pays taxes, every worker, they get their money back. What do you think about that idea?
I like that idea.
If you made like $30,000, you would get at least $2,000 back.
And that's a lot of savings. That sounds like a plan.
It would be great
Yeah?
if you do it again.
So, you got to first promise not to kick me, okay?
I will, because I kick like Mick Jagger. I've been told.
So, your idea is to just stop paying withholding tax.
Exactly.
But those taxes pay for Social Security, they pay for Medicare. What would you do about those programs?
Well, I'm not proposing to eliminate Social Security and Medicare for the year. Actually, I think that we could very well pay for that anyway and find offsets within the budget. Obama himself said that there is tons of waste in the budget. I believe him because Bush spent the pants off of this country. So if Obama went through the budget and looked for wasteful spending in this $3.5 trillion bloated budget, I'm pretty sure he could find some money for the taxpayers to get to keep.
So what you're saying is that people would no longer have to pay their Social Security, pay for it. You would just find waste and corruption in the budget.
Well, that would be the ideal situation. I proposed this plan because the government was going to spend $800 billion anyway. I thought it would be better, rather than the government getting an extra $800 billion, that the people got to keep their money. Every worker pays payroll taxes, so every worker would get at least, like $1,000 to $2,000 or even $3,000 back. $3,000 for a person who makes $40,000 a year. That's huge savings compared to this measly little $500 tax credit that Obama's talking about. The people like this plan.
Well, I can imagine, because they're getting something for nothing, basically, is what you're saying.
Well, they're not getting something for nothing. It's their money anyway. In this time of need, the people should be able to keep their money, not the government. The government should say, you know what, we care about our people, so therefore we should let them have their money back so they can pay off their mortgages or, pay for their child's education, put food on the table.
But Social Security, for example, is already going broke. Everybody knows that. Every economist agrees with that. They can't find the money. And you're saying that just by going through the budget that somehow you could find $1 here and $1 there?
Oh, not $1. I've actually researched the budget and I found that the government doesn't even know where like $20 billion goes in 1 year. It's just lost. They don't know what happened to it. $90 billion goes to programs that are deemed ineffective or failing. And this is voted for, or this is actually talked of by the government. They're the ones who've deemed these programs ineffective. So this is not chump change we're talking about. These are huge parts of the budget that could be reworked.
Where did you learn to kickbox?
Where did I learn to kickbox? Oh, I took karate when
you?
I was little. I have a green belt in karate. I hope that
Okay.
doesn't scare you.
It does. Thank you very much, Michelle. Well, we've talked about the stimulus package, and you know, when we talk about it, we talk about dollars, we talk about statistics, we talk about it in the abstract. Sometimes what we forget about is it's really about people. Well, our photojournalist Don Lee found some people that are affected by a bad economy just blocks from the White House. So instead of statistics, let's look at some of the people affected.
Here we go. Let's go.
More and more people who were formerly part of the working poor have lost their jobs, and now they're finding themselves going under. They find themselves losing their jobs as well as their homes. And it's gotten to the point where the deepening and widening of this recession, or if you want to call it depression, has brought people in here who formerly would not have been in a shelter like this or in a treatment center.
All of us here, we'd rather be on our feet, having a job, being productive members of society, but we have a sickness, and places like this, it truly does save lives. It's saving mine.
Everybody in? We got a full house today. Basically, we just go out and detail the streets and stuff, clean up curves, pick up litter, clean fence lines, remove debris. There's a buildup of sand and gravel because a lot of construction over there. We clean that up.
Okay. I joined the gospel ministry, and they pulled me up off my bootstraps. Barack Obama? Yeah, well, yeah, he's on God, and we can't expect but so much from the guy. For me, we could do more job programs for the young people, you know what I'm saying? Because these youngsters out here, they need more than just selling drugs, standing on corners, standing at liquor stores. They need to have some type of programs that's going to benefit them.
One of the main things that a president can do is, with the bully pulpit, talk about trying to help others, trying to put others first, talking about the connections between people, and as a society, that's one of the most important messages that he could provide to us.
If he were to give the lower income section some kind of tax relief, that would free up money for them to spend and put back into the economy and help it along those lines. 5-6 years ago, you could have never convinced me that I'd be in the position that I'm in, but here I am, so never say never.
So what do you think about that, Michelle?
Well, I think that it's about the people. It starts with the people. I do believe in a president to inspire people, but I don't believe in the government being the person who's going to save us. It's ourselves. It's a concept called subsidiarity, where the people closest to the problem can help the most, rather than this federal bureaucracy that promises to help these people who they don't even know. I think it really starts with people individually, looking at each other and finding where we can help. What do you need? What does that person need?
All right, well, that's certainly one point of view. Thank you. You are watching Washington Unplugged on CBSNews.com. Please email us your questions and feedback at WashingtonUnplugged@CBSNews.com. And be sure to watch Face the Nation this Sunday. And be sure to check our Facebook and Twitter page. Have a good weekend.